Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at a name that really became synonymous with a kind of American nightmare, didn't it? Charles Mills Manson.
Absolutely. His story marks, for many people, the symbolic end of that whole 1960s peace and love idealism. It's a collision, really.
A collision of what, exactly?
Well, profound systemic failure his entire life in institutions crashing headlong into this, cultural explosion of the counterculture.
Right. So we're going to try and unpack the life of Charles Mills Maddox, born 1934, a guy who spent, over half his life locked up before he became this infamous figure?
That context is everything. That lifetime inside before the summer of love, that's what we need to trace.
So our mission today is follow the timeline, try to get inside that bizarre ideology he cooked up, look at those weird, brief brushes with Hollywood, and then the cultural scar left by those horrific 1969 murders.
And we have to start with the conviction itself. 1971, first-degree murder, conspiracy, 7 people dead, including Sharon Tate.
But the key thing was the conspiracy charge, wasn't it?
Yeah. Exactly. Conspiracy by proxy. The prosecution had to argue successfully that even though Manson wasn't, physically at some of the killings.
Like the Tate murders.
Right. His words, his philosophy, his direct orders, that was the overt act of conspiracy. That's what got him convicted for all of it.
So not holding the knife, but creating the whole twisted belief system that demanded the violence.
Precisely. And it's that same sort of persuasive rhetoric, that bizarre charisma, that also led him, for a moment, into the world of LA celebrities.
Before the cult leader, the wannabe rock star, you can't really ignore his attempt to break into the music scene. It seems almost peripheral, but it's important.
It's incredibly strange. Here's this career criminal, literally just out of prison, and he somehow hooks up with Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys.
Dennis Wilson, seriously.
Wilson was apparently quite taken with him at first, called him the Wizard, even got him an introduction to Terry Melcher, the producer, Doris Day's son.
Wow, so Manson was really trying for a record deal.
Desperately. And when it fell through, when Melcher wasn't interested, well, that rejection seems to loom pretty large, especially considering where the most famous murders took place.
At Melcher's old house, a house he'd been rejected from. Okay, that adds a layer.
It does. But to understand why that rejection might have hit so hard, you really have to go back, way back, to the walls he spent his whole life inside.
Okay, let's dig into those institutional years. They really are the bedrock of who Manson became. Born in Cincinnati in 1934, his mother, Ada Kathleen Maddox, was only 16.
And his biological father, Colonel Walker Henderson Scott Sr., who he never knew was apparently a bit of a con man himself. Claimed to be an Army colonel, but Colonel was just his first name.
So instability from day one, basically.
Utterly. His mom divorced his stepfather, William Manson, pretty early on, 37, though Charles kept the name. And then the big one, 1939, Charles is 5. His mother and uncle get arrested for assault and robbery.
5 years old. And his mom goes to prison.
Yep, she got 5 years. Charles ended up with an aunt and uncle in West Virginia. Not exactly a stable start.
His mom got out in 42, and apparently he said that was the happiest time. But it didn't last, did it?
No. By age 9, serious antisocial behavior. He even claimed he set his school on fire. Then it's just truancy, petty theft, the classic pattern kicking in.
And the system's response was more institutions.
Right. Age 13, 1947, he's at the Gabalt School for Boys, a Catholic place, apparently very strict. Beatings were common. He ran away, predictably.
Then his first real documented crime on his own.
1948, robbed a grocery store. Just wanted food, supposedly, but found over $100. Rented himself a room on Skid Row. Briefly tried a legit job, Western Union, but that didn't stick.
Back to crime. Grand theft auto, armed robbery.
Which landed him in the Indiana Boys School, another tough place. And it's here, sources say, he develops this defense mechanism, the insane game.
The insane game. What was that?
It sounds theatrical, but it was pure survival. He was small, right? Vulnerable in these places. So to fend off tougher inmates, he'd deliberately act crazy, screeching, grimacing, making them think he was totally nuts so they'd leave him alone.
Wow. So performing psychosis as self-defense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can see how that kind of performative control could become a tool later on with his followers in the courtroom.
And this whole time, he was basically illiterate, right? But smart.
Yeah, tests showed an above-average IQ, 109. But the caseworker's assessment was just blunt, aggressively antisocial. That gap between intelligence and social malfunction, that's
Those
crucial.
crimes just kept escalating, even inside.
Oh, yeah. Transferred to a federal reformatory after raping a boy at knife point. racked up serious disciplinary offenses inside, including homosexual acts. He even got married twice during brief periods outside.
To Rosalie Willis had a son, Charles Manson Jr., and then Leona Candy Stevens, supposedly another son, Charles Luther.
Right. But mostly, he was inside. And a key reason he stayed inside so long was federal charges.
Things like crossing state lines and stolen cars, forged checks, the Mann Act.
Exactly. And the Mann Act, transporting women across state lines for immoral purposes, that plus the interstate stuff, meant federal time. And federal sentences back then, even for things that might seem relatively minor now, were often much harsher, much longer than state sentences for similar crimes.
So he was trapped in this federal loop.
Pretty much. A vicious cycle he couldn't escape, which makes his reaction to finally getting out even more chilling.
March 21st, 1967, he's 32, spent more than half his life locked up. And what does he do?
He asks to stay, tells the authorities prison is his home, he doesn't think he can make it on the outside, requests permission not to be released.
That's staggering. The ultimate institutionalization. He preferred prison.
It speaks volumes about his fear of the world, his lack of any real coping skills outside that rigid structure, and frankly, about the system's total failure to rehabilitate or reintegrate him.
So they basically kick him out anyway. And where does he head? Straight into the whirlwind of 1967 California.
Right. Within a month, he's in Berkeley. Then Haight-Ashbury, the heart of the Summer of Love. And he starts using LSD.
A lot.
So the ultimate symbol of confinement meets the ultimate symbol of, well, freedom and chaos.
And he lands in this really unique situation. He's still technically on parole, supervised by a guy named Roger Smith.
A federal probation officer?
Yes. But Smith was also a criminology researcher working at the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic. And guess what? Manson and his early followers became research subjects.
Wait, what? Subjects for what?
Studying the effects of LSD and methamphetamines on the counterculture. So he wasn't just some random drifter. He was being observed, documented in this clinical research context.
That's unbelievable. Did they notice anything? The clinic's founder, David Smith, later said that Roger Smith felt Manson's personality change during this period was the most abrupt, the most dramatic he had ever seen in his career.
So this environment, the drugs, the attention, it was fertile ground.
Absolutely. Perfect for him to start building his own thing. And his ideology is this weird Frankenstein's monster of ideas.
What kind of ideas?
Bits from science fiction, like Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land, pieces of the Bible, Dale Carnegie's self-help stuff, how to influence people, and critically, Scientology.
He studied Scientology.
Intensely while he was in prison. Completed something like 150 hours of auditing. He learned the techniques, the language of control, submission, breaking people down.
And he started using this mix on vulnerable people.
Exactly. Emotionally insecure people, runaways, social outcasts. His first followers were people like Mary Brunner, a young library assistant, Lynette Squeaky Frum, who was just a teenager, people looking for something.
And he gathered them together.
Yeah, they ended up living communally, sometimes up to 18 women packed into one place. And the manipulation techniques were intense.
What did witnesses say he did?
High doses of LSD were key. Allegedly, he'd used that, plus unconventional sex practices, isolation, intense lectures, all designed to break down their egos, make them empty vessels, totally reliant on him.
And he stayed in control during this.
That's what Paul Watkins, a former member, testified. He said Manson often took lower doses of acid during group sessions, kept his wits about him, you know. While everyone else was tripping, he was consolidating control. Chemical manipulation.
So this controlling figure somehow bumps into actual Hollywood royalty. The Beach Boys thing still seems bizarre.
It's pure 60s California weirdness. Dennis Wilson apparently picked up a couple of the family women who were hitchhiking in Malibu.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Yeah.
Takes him back to his place on Sunset Boulevard. Comes home later. And there's Manson and a dozen or so followers just moved in.
Dennis Wilson just
Yeah.
let them stay. A famous musician housing a cult.
For about 6 months, yeah. Wilson was apparently fascinated at first. Saw Manson as this sort of edgy counterculture guru. Called him the Wizard.
Yeah.
The women basically acted as servants.
Did Manson get anything musical out of it?
He did record some songs at Brian Wilson's home studio, though they weren't released then.
Yeah.
And there was that whole business with the song Cease to Exist.
Right. The Beach Boys recorded it as Never Learn Not to Love.
Credited only to Dennis Wilson. Manson was furious. Supposedly, there was a deal for like $100 K's worth of stuff, but Manson felt ripped off, uncredited.
So the relationship soured pretty quickly.
Dramatically. The family apparently trashed 2 of Wilson's expensive cars. When Wilson finally kicked them out and moved away himself, Manson left a bullet for the housekeeper. Yeah. A clear threat. Rejection equals violence again.
So where did they go after Wilson's place?
They ended up at Spahn Ranch in August '68. This run-down old movie set used for Westerns, basically derelict.
How did they afford that?
They didn't pay rent. The deal was the women did chores around the ranch and provided sexual favors for the owner, George Spahn, who was about 80 and nearly blind.
Grim, but the isolation must have helped Manson's control.
Totally. And it's here, at Spahn Ranch, that his main ideology, the really terrifying part, comes into full focus, helter-skelter.
Named after the Beatles song, what was the actual idea?
It was his prophecy of an imminent apocalyptic race war. He became completely obsessed with it, believed America's black population was about to rise up and slaughter the white population.
Except for the family, presumably.
Right. He thought they'd survive by hiding out in the desert, in some kind of bottomless pit he'd read about in Revelations. But the racism was blatant and, frankly, bizarre.
How so?
He believed black people, after winning the war, would be too unintelligent, in his view, to run things. So Manson and his followers, his white followers, would have to emerge from hiding and take over, become the new masters.
That's profoundly disturbing. And the murders were supposed to start this war.
That was the idea. Make them look like they were committed by black militants, frame them, ignite the conflict. Helter-skelter was the goal.
And just before all this kicks off, he has that weird encounter at the house on Cielo Drive?
Yeah, March 1969. He goes to 1150 Cielo Drive looking for Terry Melcher, the guy who rejected his music. But Melcher's already moved out.
Who was living there then?
Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate. Manson actually spoke to the owner, Rudolph Altobelli, in the guest house. Altobelli told him Melcher was gone, asked him not to bother the tenants.
Did Tate see him?
Apparently, yes. She later asked Altobelli about that creepy-looking guy. It's just...
Yeah.
Months later, that exact house becomes the scene of the massacre he orders, the place of his rejection. Okay, so summer 1969. Things escalate fast. The first real violent act that sets things in motion is the shooting of Bernard Lotzapapa Crow, July 1st.
Who was Crow?
A drug dealer. Apparently, Tex Watson had ripped him off, and Crow threatened to wipe out everyone at Spahn Ranch. So Manson goes to Crow's place in Hollywood and shoots him.
Did he kill him?
Manson thought he'd killed him. And this is critical. Soon after, Manson sees a news report about a Black Panther member's body being found dumped somewhere in L.A. He puts 2 and 2 together, wrongly assumes Crow was a Panther, and totally freaks out.
Thinks the Panthers are going to come after the family for revenge.
Exactly. Massive retaliation. So he orders Spahn Ranch turned into an armed camp, defenses up, ready for war. This paranoia, fueled by his mistake, makes Helter-Skelter feel real, immediate to him.
And that paranoia leads to the next murder, Gary Hinman.
Late July '69. Gary Hinman was a music teacher, UCLA grad student. Manson somehow got it in his head that Hinman had money, maybe a $21,000 inheritance, or maybe owed money for bad drugs sold to a biker gang, the Strayed Satans. The motive is a bit murky.
So he sends people to get the money.
Sends Bobby Beausoleil, Susan Atkins, Mary Brunner. They hold Hinman hostage for 2 days. He doesn't have the money or won't give it up.
Then Manson gets involved personally.
Yeah, Manson shows up, takes a sword, slashes Hinman's face, cuts his ear. Then, allegedly on Manson's orders, Beausoleil stabs Hinman to death.
And they leave a sign, like Crow.
Just like the plan for Helter-Skelter. They write political piggy on the wall in Hinman's blood and draw a panther paw print trying to frame the Black Panthers.
And Beausoleil gets caught.
Days later, driving Hinman's car. Arrested. And this arrest is the pivot point. Because now, one major motive for the Tate LaBianca murders becomes trying to commit copycat crimes to get Beausoleil off the hook.
So you've got 2 potential motives swirling around now. Start Helter-Skelter and free Bobby.
Exactly. Which brings us to August 8th, 1969, 1050 Cielo Drive.
The Tate house. What were Manson's specific orders, according to Watson?
Tex Watson claimed Manson told him, go to that house, totally destroy everyone inside, and make it as gruesome as you can. And he told the women with Watson Atkins, Krenwinkel, and Linda Kasabian, do whatever Tex tells you.
The victims inside, Sharon Tate, heavily pregnant.
Jay Sebring, a celebrity hairstylist. Wojciech Krakowski, a writer and friend of Polanski's. Abigail Folger, the coffee heiress. And outside, Stephen Parent, just a young guy visiting the caretaker, caught leaving at the wrong moment.
Watson cut the phone lines first.
Yes, then shot and stabbed Parent in his car. Inside, it was chaos and terror. Watson reportedly announced, "I'm the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's business."
The violence was extreme. Sebring protested how they were treating Tate.
Shot and stabbed 7 times for it. Frykowski fought back hard, incredibly bravely, but was stabbed 51 times, beaten over the head 13 times. Folger ran outside but was caught and stabbed 28 times.
And Sharon Tate pleading for her baby's life.
Hanged briefly with a rope, then stabbed 16 times. Died from massive hemorrhage. Just horrific.
And again, they left a sign.
Atkins wrote "Pig" on the front door in Tate's blood. Now here's the conflict again. Was pig meant to incite the race war, like the prosecution argued? Or was it, as Atkins later claimed, a direct copycat of the piggy at the Hinman scene intended to point blame elsewhere and free Beausoleil?
Two very different interpretations of the same word.
Fundamentally different. And Manson apparently wasn't satisfied. He felt the Tate murders weren't messy enough. Didn't send the right message.
So the next night, August 10th, he goes out himself.
He drives the car this time. Takes Watson, Krenwinkel, Leslie Van Houten, and others. They drive around randomly for a while, then end up at 3301 Waverly Drive.
A LaBianca house.
Home of Lino LaBianca, a supermarket executive, and his wife Rosemary. And this time, Manson goes inside with Watson initially.
What did he do?
He tied the couple up. Then, and this is crucial for the conspiracy charge he left, told Watson, Krenwinkel, and Van Houten what to do, and then left them to carry out the murders.
More extreme brutality.
If anything, even more ritualistic. Lena was stabbed 12 times with a bayonet. The word "war" was carved into his stomach.
And Rosemary.
Stabbed 41 times. Horrifically, many of those wounds were inflicted by Leslie Van Houten after Rosemary was already dead.
And more writing. More signs.
Yes, Krenwinkel wrote "Rise and Death to Pigs" on the walls. And significantly, "Helter Skelter" misspelled on the refrigerator door. All in blood. They left a carving fork sticking out of Lino's stomach, a steak knife in his throat. Pure overkill designed to shock.
Was that the end of the violence for that night?
Almost. Manson later sent some followers to kill an actor, Saladin Nader. But Linda Kasabian, who was the driver and lookout at Tate and was present at LaBianca, claims she deliberately messed it up. Knocked on the wrong door on purpose to prevent another murder.
That act probably saved her later, giving her credibility for immunity.
Absolutely. It positioned her as someone who finally resisted. But there was one more murder directly linked to the family that summer.
Donald Shorty Shea.
August 26th. Shea was a stuntman, worked at Spahn Ranch. Manson apparently suspected him of being an informant, or maybe just didn't like him because she was married to a black woman, which clashed with Manson's racist views.
How was he killed?
Brutally tortured and murdered by Manson, Bruce Davis, Tex Watson, and Steve Grogan. Pipe wrenches, knives, bayonets. Davis later described the horrific scene, how Manson pressured them, how he himself couldn't bring himself to use a machete effectively.
They buried him out there.
Somewhere on or near the ranch. His remains weren't found for 8 years, until 1977, when Grogan finally agreed to lead authorities to the burial site as part of a deal.
So, multiple gruesome murders, cryptic messages. How did the police investigation handle all this initially? It sounds like chaos.
It was. There was a huge, tragic disconnect at first. The detectives investigating the Tate murders initially didn't connect them to the LaBianca murders the very next night.
Why not? They seem so similar.
The Tate scene was incredibly messy, and some victims had connections, however tangential, to the drug scene. So the initial theory for Tate was maybe a drug deal gone bad. They overlooked the ritualistic elements initially.
So what finally connected the dots?
The Hinman case detectives. They saw reports about the Tate killings, noticed the similarities, the extreme stabbing, the writing in blood, specifically the word pig or piggy. They reached out to the Tate team. That was the breakthrough.
That cross-jurisdictional communication was key.
Absolutely critical. But even then, catching the family wasn't straightforward. They were actually arrested before the murder link was solid, but for something else.
The dune buggy theft ring.
Right. August 16th. A big raid at Spahn Ranch. They were stealing VW Beetles, converting them into dune buggies, major auto theft. But they all got released.
Why?
A technicality. The warrant had the wrong date on it. A simple clerical error let them walk. Unbelievable.
So when were they finally apprehended for good?
October. After they had moved out to Barker Ranch, this isolated place in the desert, they got noticed after setting fire to some earth-moving equipment belonging to Death Valley National Monument. That triggered another big raid.
And they found Manson hiding.
Yeah, a highway patrol officer found him crammed into a tiny cabinet underneath a bathroom sink. A pretty ignominious capture.
But the actual evidence linking them to the murders came from inside the system.
Yes. Susan Atkins. She was in custody for the Hinman murder already, and she started bragging to her cellmates, giving them incredibly graphic, accurate details about the Tate murders.
And the cellmates talked.
They did. That information got back to the investigators, and it blew the case wide open. That led to murder warrants for Watson, Krenwinkel, and Kasabian in early December '69.
And Kasabian turned herself in.
She did. She'd already fled the family right after the LaBianca killings, clearly terrified. She surrendered voluntarily and, crucially, because she hadn't physically participated in the killings, she was mostly the driver. And look how she was offered immunity.
In exchange for testifying against everyone else.
Exactly. Her testimony became the absolute cornerstone of the prosecution's case. She was the eyewitness who could put Manson at the center, issuing orders, connecting both murder scenes, explaining the motives. Without her, the conspiracy case would have been much harder.
Okay, so the trial starts June 1970, and it immediately descends into, well, a circus.
A terrifying circus, right from day one. Manson is denied the right to represent himself, which infuriates him. So what does he do? Carves an X into his forehead with his fingernail.
An X? What did that mean?
He declared he had X'd himself from the establishment's world, cut himself off, and almost immediately, the female defendants, Atkins, Krenwinkel, Van Houten, they copy him. Carve X's on their own foreheads.
And the family members outside the courtroom.
They start showing up with X's too. Loitering outside the courthouse, sometimes openly wearing sheathed knives. It was pure intimidation theater.
Were witnesses actually intimidated or harmed?
Oh, definitely. Paul Watkins, a key former member who testified against Manson, his van mysteriously burst into flames, leaving him badly burned. Another witness, Barbara Hoyt, was lured to Hawaii by family members who tried to silence her by giving her a hamburger laced with a massive dose of LSD. She survived, but they were clearly trying to stop her testimony.
And Manson himself was disruptive in court.
Constantly. At one point, President Nixon made a comment to the press saying Manson was guilty, essentially convicting him before the verdict. Manson managed to get a newspaper with the headline, "Manson Guilty, Nixon Declares," and flashed it at the jury. Caused a huge uproar, motions for mistrial.
And he physically attacked the judge.
He literally leaped over the defense table and tried to attack Judge Charles Older. After that, rumor has it, Judge Older started carrying a revolver under his robes. The tension was unbelievable.
Even the defense lawyers weren't safe.
The most chilling incident involved Ronald Hughes, Leslie Van Houten's lawyer. During a weekend recess near the end of the trial, he went camping and just disappeared.
Vanished.
Completely. His badly decomposed body was found months later. While never officially proven, the suspicion has always been that the family murdered him. Sandra Good, another family member, later referred to Hughes's death as the first of the retaliation murders. It cast a pall over the whole proceeding.
Did Manson ever testify directly to the jury?
No, the judge wouldn't allow him to represent himself, and he largely refused to cooperate with his appointed attorney. He did give a long, rambling statement outside the jury's presence, basically doubling down on his helter-skelter philosophy, blaming society, saying things like, "The music is telling the youth to rise up against the establishment," but he maintained deniability about the actual orders.
So the whole trial boils down to the prosecution's motive versus the defense's. Helter-skelter versus copycat.
Exactly. Prosecutor Vincent Bugliosi hammered home helter-skelter. The bizarre race war motive, the pig writings, the attempt to frame black groups, the wallet supposedly left in a black neighborhood. That was the narrative. Manson masterminded these killings to ignite chaos.
And the defense, what was their argument?
Fragmented, especially after Hughes disappeared. But the core idea they tried to float was the copycat motive. That the women, maybe led by Kasabian before she got immunity, planned and carried out the Tate LaBianca killings primarily to mimic the Hinman murder scene and get Bobby Beausoleil freed. A much more mundane, albeit still horrific, motive.
So grand apocalyptic delusion versus cynical legal strategy.
That was the choice facing the jury. They ultimately believed Bugliosi and the helter-skelter narrative. Rejected the copycat theory.
January 25th, 1971, guilty verdicts.
Guilty on all counts for Manson, Atkins, Krenwinkel, and Van Houten, all sentenced to death.
But they weren't executed.
No. In 1972, the California Supreme Court briefly ruled the state's death penalty unconstitutional. So all their sentences, along with others on death row at the time, were automatically commuted to life in prison, but with the possibility of parole.
And that's where Manson stayed for the next, 46 years? Life in prison?
46 years. And it wasn't exactly quiet. He remained a volatile figure even inside. In 1984, another inmate threw paint thinner on him and set him on fire.
Set him on fire. Why?
Apparently, Manson had objected to the other guy's Hare Krishna chanting, caused second- and third-degree burns, just constant conflict.
Did he ever engage with the parole process, show remorse?
Rarely. After 1997, he pretty much refused to even attend his parole hearings. The reports always cited the same things: zero remorse, ongoing controlling behavior, significant mental health issues. Diagnoses shifted over the years: schizophrenia, paranoid delusional disorder, later assessments suggesting bipolar disorder, psychopathy. But the core assessment was always unreformed, still dangerous. Parole was consistently denied.
Did he still try to connect with the outside world?
Oh, yeah. In 2009, they caught him with a smuggled cell phone. He'd been calling people all over the U.S., even Canada, and then there was the whole engagement thing.
Right, to star Afton Lane Burton.
Yeah, this young woman who started visiting him became convinced of his innocence, maintained a relationship with him for 9 years. They actually got a marriage license in 2014.
But they never actually got married.
Nope. The license expired. There were reports, like from journalist Daniel Simone, claiming Manson called it off because he found out her real motives was, well, grotesque. She supposedly wanted to marry him just to get legal rights to his body after he died.
To put it on display, like a tourist attraction.
That was the allegation. Who knows the real truth, but the wedding never happened. Classic Manson weirdness right to the end.
And the family's influence didn't just vanish either, right? Squeaky from...
Exactly. Even years later, the family echo was there. 1975, Lynette Squeaky Frum, one of his earliest followers, points a gun at President Gerald Ford in Sacramento. Her stated reason was basically to gain attention for Manson, to be closer to him. She was tackled, the gun didn't fire properly, but it was a major incident.
And Sandra Good, too.
Around the same time, yeah. Sandra Good was convicted for sending threatening letters related to environmental issues, but again, seen as acting under Manson's lingering influence. It kept the fear alive, kept the family in the headlines.
So Manson finally dies in prison November 19, 2017. How old was he?
83. Died of cardiac arrest, complications from colon cancer. But even his death wasn't the end of the story.
The fight over his body.
Right. A bizarre three-way legal battle erupted. His grandson, Jason Freeman, wanted the remains. A pen pal named Michael Channels produced a will supposedly leaving everything to him. And another guy, Matthew Roberts, claimed to be Manson's son, though DNA tests later disproved that.
Who ended up winning?
The court sided with the grandson, Jason Freeman. He had Manson cremated in March 2018 and scattered the ashes somewhere on a California hillside.
So looking back, what's the cultural impact? He looms so large.
Undeniably. Musically, he was this outsider figure. His own album, LIE, came out during the trial. Artists from Guns N' Roses covering Look at Your Game, Girl, to Marilyn Manson, taking his name, that connection to dark counterculture is potent.
And in film.
The sheer brutality, the randomness, the Hollywood connection. Yeah. It definitely influenced movies. Some argue it ushered in an era of increased gore and sexual violence in horror and crime films, and that weird Star Wars connection.
Luke Starkiller.
Yeah, George Lucas apparently changed the hero's name to Skywalker, partly because, with renewed Manson coverage after the From attempt, Starkiller sounded too much like Celebrity Killer. The name itself had become toxic, associated with that specific fear Manson generated.
So this deep dive really shows a perfect storm, doesn't it? A life shaped by institutional failure colliding with the wild energy of the 60s counterculture.
And creating this uniquely American monster, crafting a racist, apocalyptic ideology out of scraps of pop culture, the Bible, and prison yard psychology.
As we wrap up, let's go back to that core question from the trial. The conflicting motives. Was it all about the grand, insane plan of Helter Skelter, this elaborate scheme to start a race war?
That was the prosecution's narrative, the terrifying, almost epic delusion.
Or was it the defense's alternative, something almost more chilling in its banality, that these horrific, headline-grabbing murders were just a calculated tactic, a copycat crime designed simply to get their friend Bobby Busselay out of jail?
A cynical, strategic move using extreme violence as legal leverage.
So the final thought for you to consider. What's ultimately more disturbing? The idea of a cult leader driven by a vast, racist, apocalyptic fantasy, or the idea that such brutal, infamous murders could be committed for a reason as relatively mundane, as strategically cold as trying to spring a buddy from prison.
How does knowing that both of these starkly different motives seem plausible, even equally plausible given the evidence and the players involved, shape how we understand cults, manipulation, and the potential for violence?